Welcome to my tutorial of Street Fighter X Mega Man for the PC. This game took me around 5 hours and 19 minutes to beat. And I would say it's a little bit easier than most of the mainline Mega Man games that you'd play on the NES. The levels are actually quite a bit easier than those games, so I would say it's actually a lot easier in that sense. Some of the boss fights will be comparable to what you would play in the NES games or other Mega Man games, challenge-wise. Some of them can be pretty tricky. They're, of course, made much easier by using the right weapons on them, but some of them can still actually be a little bit harder than you would expect, even when you're using the weapons that the bosses are weak to. Unlike most of the standard Mega Man games, when you find the right weapon for the boss, it usually makes them very easy, but some of them in this game can still be a little challenging. So I would say the bosses are the main area that holds any kind of challenge in this game. The stages are very easy for the kind of game that this is based off of, older NES games, especially the Mega Man series. So, if you've beaten those before, then this should be easier than those games. But yeah, this game was released, I believe, over 8 years ago, and it was made by one person. And I believe Capcom allowed it to be officially released. So it was only released on PC, and I'm just now starting to mess around with some PC games. On the emulation PC I use that's focused on playing emulated games. And I have some PC games on there that I never really fucked around with, so now I'm starting to mess around with them, and this was one of them. And this is actually a very good game. I'm going to post a review up on this as well. But yeah, the way this game works is like the other Mega Man games. Each of the initial 8 bosses has a weakness. And by using the correct weapon on the boss, you'll damage it the most. So you're going to get you'll get a unique weapon every time you defeat a boss. And then by using that, particular weapon on the boss that's weak to it, it'll do much more damage. So I'm going to start off by beating some of the bosses with just the regular pellets because I didn't look up the correct boss order, right away. I just played it normally at first, so I beat some of the bosses with just pellets. But you will see the correct boss order, especially when I fight the 8 bosses at the end of the game. You have to use the correct weapon for each boss. And you'll see what weapons I use there. Those are all the best weapons to use for the bosses. So that's a faster way to kind of reference it. But you can also, if you go on Gamefaqs, there's a whole list of the boss weaknesses. That's what I used when I after I was playing for a while. I just used that. So yeah, there's a lot of areas like this where if you want, you can kind of farm because enemies will keep spawning, and you can try to get 1-ups and life and shit like that, weapon energy back if you want by killing these things. But this is not a great farming area, as you can see, because it's kind of dangerous. It's hard to not get hit. So I didn't end up farming this area for too long. As far as trying to farm 1-ups, it's usually a waste of time, but you will occasionally get a 1-up for killing things, but it seems to be very rare. So I wouldn't try to farm 1-ups, but it is worth farming health sometimes if your health is low. There's a lot of little areas where you can do that. Of course, if you want to respawn enemies, you can usually... I believe you can leave certain screens and come back, but I don't think you can do that with all the screens, if I remember right. A lot of times, the best way to make enemies respawn is just to walk a few inches off to the left or right, and then come back. That's usually the best way to get most of the enemies to respawn in these games. Because the games won't always let you leave the screen and come back to the next screen. There are a few areas where you can do that. There's at least one area that I can think of. But I don't think that's, it may not be real common. I didn't try it a lot. But yeah, the stages, they're pretty simple as you can see. It's kind of standard Mega Man type of stuff, but there's really no real challenging platforming except for one area, which is a little tricky initially until you know what you have to do, and then it's really easy. But there's really nothing that's going to challenge any players that have beaten these Mega Man games before. But, of course, for new players who don't play a lot of these type of games. Now you can see I edited out some farming there where I was farming my health back. But you may want to farm your health back before the boss. It's an easy place to do so. So yeah, for this boss, I just used the pellets. I didn't look up the weapons, but the correct weapon to use on this guy is the Yoga Flame. So you'd probably want to beat Dhalsim before you beat this guy and get the Yoga Flame. And then, of course, for Dhalsim, there's going to be a weapon choice to use on him. That's the Optic Laser. So then, of course, you want to beat the person who has the Optic Laser before you fight Dhalsim. That's why I'm going to probably post up a list of all the boss order and boss weaknesses. Because I did it a little bit out of order since I just kind of... Like I said, I did some of the bosses with pellets just to... just because I was just playing, I didn't feel like looking anything up initially. This is really just commentary on my edited playthrough, my regular playthrough through the game, just to beat the game. So, a lot of it is going to be sloppy. But I really did have to refine certain parts. The Vega fight is tough, and I wanted to beat Vega without using an energy tank, so it's important to be able to do that. And I'll explain how to easily get to M. Bison with 3 energy tanks. Now, if you want to exploit a trick, there's apparently a trick to this game that I never did. But if you... there's 4 stages that have energy tanks on them. And one of them is Ryu's stage. Ryu's stage is a very easy stage to get the energy tank. So if you want to, you can collect the energy tank off of Ryu's stage. And then... I'm not sure if you have to beat his stage. No, I don't think you do. I think you can collect the energy tank and then just lose all your lives on his stage. And then just go back to the title screen and just restart the game. Don't put in a password or anything. Just restart. And you should be starting with an energy tank at the start. And apparently you can keep doing that and max out your energy tanks. I don't know how many you can hold. Probably a shitload. You can probably make the game super easy if you want to do that. I mean, I would consider that pretty cheap, but I mean, it is kind of a fault of the game, though, too. So, I mean, it is something you could discover on your own, even though the game is not tightly protected against that little exploit. So you can decide if that's something you want to exploit that to beat the game or not. I would rather just go through the game, normally. That's a little cheap for me. I didn't really want to do that. But I didn't find out about it till that I could do that till later, so... But yeah, I would recommend actually beating all the main bosses without using any energy tanks. If I could do it again, I would have saved my energy tanks. But I didn't realize how it worked. But you can collect 4 energy tanks from the 4 stages that have them. There's an energy tank on this stage as well. I always miss it, though. But if you can jump across this gap without getting knocked off like I just did, you can get the energy tank. But you'd have to set that up better. It's hard to get across that gap because of all the bullshit going on. But it can be done, I'm sure. But the best way would be to bring all 4 energy tanks to the final area, and then you get 2 more energy tanks there. So you'd have 6 energy tanks for the final area if you do that. I would recommend doing that. There's really no reason to use the energy tanks on the regular bosses. I mean, they can be tricky initially, but if you know what weapons to use against them, it shouldn't take too many attempts. You may have to redo the stages a few times if you run out of lives, but it shouldn't take too many attempts to beat them without using energy tanks. You have unlimited continues and passwords. You'll just start at the beginning of the stage if you lose all your lives. You do get checkpoints at the bosses and at certain parts in the stages too if you just lose a life. So this is another boss that's easy to beat with just a regular buster shot. My dodging wasn't too good at this point because I didn't really have this boss down that well, but it was still very easy. You mainly just want to keep your distance from her and shoot, and when she starts doing attacks like the helicopter kick, you want to dash underneath. And, if she's doing like that arcing kick, just get away from it or, move forward so she goes over you. But it's pretty basic. I was playing it sloppy because I'm too good at this fight, but it was good enough. I fight her better later on in the boss rush. We have to fight all 8 bosses again at the end, like usual for the Mega Man games. So yeah, keep that in mind. Keep all 4 energy tanks if you can, because they're going to be useful for the final area. The way energy tanks work, I didn't know this, but the way it works, if you collect an energy tank, it's no longer in the stage anymore. And if you use it, it's gone forever. They're like one-time use items, and they will never reappear in the stages again. So you basically want to hold on to them and not waste them, because you only have a limited amount for the entire game, so it's not like they're going to come back. So The good thing, though, is if you lose all your lives and ways to continue, you keep all your energy tanks. So, it's better just to collect them, just keep them in your inventory, and just don't use them for the 8 bosses is what I recommend. Because the end of the game is tough. And if you have those energy tanks, you can get through the end without too much trouble. Because you can kind of just use your energy tanks to survive through the fight. You still do have to learn the patterns and how to fight M. Bison because it's kind of a long fight. And if you run out of your special weapons, you only have your pellets, and you can take long to take down with that. So you'll still have to practice, but it'll make things way easier if you have, 6 energy tanks for the final 2 areas. So that's what I would recommend doing. Don't follow what I did here where I used energy tanks and wasted them. So yeah, this stage really isn't hard. None of the stages are really hard except for a few that are like slightly challenging, but they may have one platforming section, where you have to figure out what to do. But I mean, nothing as complicated as the NES games where, there was multiple sections in a row that would be quite difficult. And I have completed the 6 games on the NES and the 7th on Super Nintendo. I don't remember off memory if I completed Mega Man 8 on PlayStation 1. I may have. That would have been a more recent. I've gone through a number of the Mega Man X games, but not all. There's a few of those that I didn't beat. I still want to finish the few that I missed. But yeah, I can say that all the NES games were, considerably harder than this game. But it still has some challenging parts. So there's an energy tank that you can very easily get up at the top there. I recommend just grabbing it. I don't bother trying to do anything too skillful with these guys. I set it to rapid fire on my controller, so I would just go up and just basically machine gun them with my pellets at point blank range. As soon as their shield goes down, it kills them pretty fast. You may get hit once, but I didn't care about that. Just grab the energy tank when you can and just get out of there. And like I said, I recommend holding on to that energy tank. Because like I said, if you waste all your lives and you have to continue at the beginning again, you'll still have your energy tank as long as you didn't use it. You just can't come back here and collect it again, obviously, and stock them up. But if you really want to stock them up, you can use that cheap little trick that I mentioned, and just, get the energy tanks on the first 4 stages that have them. Or just get the energy tank on one of the stages that you find easy to grab it fast. Maybe Ryu's stage. I think that's a real easy one. So just grab it and then just start back and just keep playing Ryu's stage again and again. You should be able to accumulate a shit ton of energy tanks if you want to do that. I mean, I think it's cheap, but I probably wouldn't call it cheating, though, either, because, the game has a programming flaw where you can just easily exploit it. It's something you could figure out yourself. It's not like that confusing to figure out, so. But I draw the line at codes, if you have to press, up 6 times, left, right, down, and all this shit. At that point, it's a code. And I consider that kind of stuff cheap. Or cheating, I should say. I would consider that cheating. I would consider the energy tank trick just cheap. But I would still consider it, I guess I would consider it a legitimate kill. I wouldn't really want to beat the game that way. I thought it was more enjoyable to actually kind of, to have to do somewhat well. But I've done shit like that before. Like Contra 3 for Super Nintendo. Halfway through the game, I grinded up I think 30 lives or some shit. It was a cheap technique. But the game does let you do it. But I mean, I could have easily just spent a little bit extra time, maybe an extra hour or two learning the rest of the game properly. So my tutorial for that was a little sloppy. I really didn't refine that. So for this boss, you're just going to use Lightning Kick. I like setting the Lightning Kick to rapid fire because I find, on the controller, if your controller has that, because it ends up getting a few extra hits in. But it can also stick you in place a little bit longer and make it harder to move with the Lightning Kick. So it has some drawback. But you may want to try it with the rapid fire. The main thing with her is to just try to, jump around and try to land on her with those lightning kicks and just try to stay out of her way and, get close to get the hit. Like hit and run tactic is what I did. I get my lightning kick in, and then I try to move away. So I'll go for 1 or 2 hits and then just get out of there. But really, I did not have a refined strategy for that at all. It was pretty sloppy, but this is not a game I mastered at all, but it was, it was good enough. So now you get the Optic laser, which is going to be really, really good for Dhalsim. It really destroys Dhalsim and makes him very easy. So yeah, I really liked this game a lot. It was a very, very good game, especially for when I discovered and didn't know about. Because I love the Mega Man games, and this is basically a 13th or 14th Mega Man game. Mega Man 11 was also awesome, the most recent one. I did complete that as well. I forgot about that one. I never beat 9 and 10. I got far in at least one of them. Those were pretty fucking hard, too. Those were tough. A lot harder than the NES ones from what I played. I would like to go back to Mega Man 9 and 10 and play those. I actually have them on emulation. Wii emulation, actually. And I have them on my PS3 still, on my hard drive, my original, not my original PS3, but the replacement PS3 that I bought. It's a newer model of the PS3, still fucking old. But, so I have the games on there, so I could resume them from that. I think I may have to start them from the beginning, but at least I have the games. I lost all my saves on my PS3 years ago because, the Sony is very strict about moving your saves to another console. You're pretty much, on the PS3, pretty much fucked. I don't think there was cloud saves back then or anything. But for whatever reason, I couldn't move my saves. So for these guys, you may want to take them out, but sometimes you can just leave the areas that they're in and just get out of there. They're easy enough to take out if you just jump right up to them and, use rapid fire, just mash the button and get in a bunch of pellets. You can also use some of your special weapons if you want. I'm sure some of the special weapons would probably take them out pretty well. I just didn't even bother because these levels were easy enough. I didn't mind if I took some damage. For those spinning guys, when they stop spinning, you can get in some shots, but sometimes it's better to just avoid them. So now, that area that I just dropped down is actually a checkpoint for the stage. But see, I'm going to go up here, and I think I do end up getting killed, but I'll show you where the energy tank is. It's not going to be here anymore, but if you watch where I go up here, after you go past all these spinners, don't play it as sloppily as I did, obviously. But see, if you go up here, there's an energy tank. I think I sloppily just consumed it immediately, which is really stupid to do. I didn't understand at all how the energy tanks in the game worked at all. I thought maybe they came back. I didn't understand, the permanence of them at the time. But as I have now, understood and explained, if you use them, they're gone forever. So, don't use the energy tanks for no reason. I say save them for the end of the game. Beat all 8 bosses without using any energy tanks and just get the energy tanks. They're all very easy to get on all the stages. There's only 4 of them. Very easy to get. They're barely out of the way. Some of them are pretty much in your general direction that you're going anyways. So you really don't have to do much to get the energy tanks. There's one that's a little tricky to get, but that's in the final stage. So I'll show how to get that. I just got a really high quality camera just came in, and I'm planning to make a room tour of my weird fucking setup. It's pretty much not a flashy looking setup, but everything's condensed into a very small space. So I think it'll be interesting. It's a setup I used, to record everything to beat, hundreds and hundreds of games, and everything is set up very specifically. So I think it might be interesting to go over. I have a lot of controllers. I'd like to review them. I use them for specific, types of games and stuff. So there's a lot of cool shit that I'd like to break down with these videos, and I'll do like a room tour probably soon and show the setup. But yeah, these guys are very easy. This is actually a very good farming spot. When you wait for them to stop spinning, you can kill them, as I said. And if you want, I edited it down, but you can farm there for a while. Just keep moving the screen left and right. They will respawn, and just keep killing them. And if you do so, you will be able to farm all your health back if you need it. You may even get a 1-up, but it's rare that they drop 1-up, so I wouldn't bother trying to get 1-ups off of that. So if you drop down in that hole, it's a good area to just jump out and take your shots when you have a chance when they stop spinning. And then just go up here and just jump over, drop down here, and slide out of here. Don't bother trying to fight any of those guys. Just slide through. This is actually one of the harder stages, and it's not even that hard, but it's one of the harder stages in the game. Like I said, the main challenge in this game is only a few of the boss fights are a little challenging. That's why it took me over 5 hours. It's still, a slightly challenging game. It's not an easy game, but it would definitely be easy for a Mega Man game. It's on the easier side for a Mega Man game. So yeah, for Dhalsim, you're going to use Optic Laser and just kind of, you can get up and kind of mash it like you saw me do. It's a little bit sloppy. You can also just shoot at him from a distance. Either way, it's easy because his flames can be shot down as well. So he's not much of a threat to you. There's not much you can do if you shoot his flames down and shoot him. Of course, if he's shooting a flame directly at you on your same plane that you're on, you can just shoot the laser through the flame and through him and damage him while taking out the flame. It's very easy. And now you'll get the Yoga Inferno, which is actually the best weapon to use on Blanka, but since I've already defeated Blanka, you're not going to see me using it on him until the final boss rush. You'll see me use the proper weapons for all the guys. I just kind of pelleted my way through initially for a few of the beginning bosses, and then I decided I should see if there's a boss, fac on Gamefaqs. You show all the order and all that shit. I just got a mount for my tablet I use, and I use that for gaming pretty much. I use that to look shit up, watch videos and stuff. And I just got a mount for it, so now I can actually have the thing mounted up right on the side of the recliner. So I can pretty much have the screen right off to my side, and I can leave the information right off on the side on the tablet screen. And I was able to reference it a lot quicker. So that was cool. This was the first game that I used that new little thing on. That was kind of cool to fuck around with. I think that'll be useful for some of the more, detailed games where I need to use maps, or if I need to, go through doors in a certain order, shit like that. I can pop up videos and reference them. It's kind of it's a little bit of a pain in the ass to do that sometimes when you have the tablet on your lap with the controller, because they kind of get in the way of each other. So this makes it a little bit more convenient. This level's cool. It's super easy, but it's a cool level. It's like a shooter-style stage, which I think is cool that they mixed up the gameplay a little. You don't usually see shooter stages in Mega Man games. I can't really think of any off the top of my head that ever really did that. But there's probably a few that did it. I know there was, in Mega Man X, there was, like, stages where you would ride, like, a snowmobile or something, and you had to kind of jump over stuff and get past obstacles, shit like that. I don't know if I remember any shooter stages in any of the Mega Man games, but there probably was. I thought it was cool, though. It's the only time Rush appears in this game. You don't actually get to use him to navigate obstacles. So now it turns into your regular side-scrolling type of level. A very, very easy side-scrolling stage. So you can just kind of fire as you're moving, of course. If any enemies appear, they'll get hit. I do that in a lot of games. I like to inch the screen when I don't know what's coming up. I think I had tried this stage already at this point and had failed the boss fight because I think the boss was tough. But I don't think I had the proper weapon I needed. Because remember, I was trying to play the game with pellets initially. I was too fucking stubborn to look up the boss order. I just kind of wanted to just play and fuck around. I usually try to do that with the Mega Man games. I'll see which bosses I can take out with the pellets first, just fucking around. And then I may actually look up what order I should fight the bosses in. So here's a very easy farming spot. If you want to farm, you can. You can do that at pretty much most locations in the game. It's very easy to farm in this game if you want to farm health. But you can just keep spawning the screen as you see me doing. Now, I edited this down. I did this for a while. I don't remember what I was trying to actually get. I may have been trying to get 1-ups to see if I could get them. But I'm never really successful when I try to get 1-ups. I always get them on accident. Some random enemy usually drops a 1-up for me, but whenever I try to farm 1-ups, I don't usually get them. I think that you probably could if you farmed for long enough, but I think it's a really rare drop. Though I'm not sure because I don't end up getting them when I try to farm them. So yeah, this is nearing the end of the stage now. Make sure to take this spinning thing out before you jump across these things. Don't try to do that. It's a little dangerous. You'll get knocked in the pit. Potentially. When you're dropping down on this last one, just it glitched out a little bit in the recording, but just hold jump and hold right, and you'll get there. Don't try to cut your jump short while jumping down those things, or you'll fall in the hole. But it's like if you just hold it, you will naturally kind of land on the platform. It's kind of hard to explain. Very easy to do though. You probably won't even die there. Yeah, so this is the little area before the boss. I don't know if you can respawn this area by going off screen or anything, so... yeah, this boss is not too difficult like most of the bosses. You just need to use the proper weapon. For this boss, it's that tropical weapon. It says tropical some shit. Tropical hazard, I believe. So, now I didn't do it well here at all. I'm very sloppy. You'll see me do it a little bit better in the final stage. But you basically just, all you got to do is put down the watermelon and just move away, and she'll just run into it. You just want to put them down in her path and just move away. That's all you really have to do. But of course, I did it extremely sloppily. But you see how easy it was. I still had a lot of health left, and I mean, I still beat it. So I don't remember if I used an energy tank. I wasn't really paying attention to what I did in the pause menu. I may have. I don't know. I mean, I have sloppily used up energy tanks in this game, unfortunately, and I didn't have. I only had 2 for the final stage, which was kind of shitty. I ended up redoing the Ryu stage just so I could bring an extra energy tank. So I recommend doing Ryu as the last stage you do, the last boss stage. And it's also going to work out that way because if you're doing the bosses in the proper order to use the best weapon on each boss, you're going to do Ryu last. So, and what I recommend is, now of course, in hindsight, I've recommended that you save all your energy tanks and don't use any of them on the 8 bosses. You know, that's what I recommend for this tutorial. But at the very least, if you do want to use your other 3 energy tanks for some reason on the other bosses, I would recommend at least beat Ryu without using an energy tank. I mean, I don't see why you would want it, because he's a very easy boss with the reflector. And there's really no reason to waste an energy tank on this stage. So at least save the energy tank from this stage and bring it into the final 4 stages, which are, you know, you don't get any passwords for those stages, but you can continue infinitely at whatever stage you made it to. But if you shut the game off, then you have to start back at your last password, which would be after you defeated the 8 bosses. Now, luckily, I had records of my previous passwords, so I actually used an older password to go back to before I beat Ryu. And I decided not to use my energy tank this time and just pick up the energy tank so I could bring it to the final bosses. So I recommend at least doing that so you at least have 3 energy tanks for the final bosses, because my strategy is going to be based around having 3 energy tanks for the final bosses. And that's the way I ended up doing it. So I'd recommend at least doing that if you do want to use the other energy tanks for whatever reason. But it would make things a lot easier if you just, you know, take the little bit of extra time to fail on the other 8 bosses, you know, and just learn them. You're going to have to fight them again anyway in the final boss rush, so you might as well learn how to fight them. You're not really going to be saving time by trying to use an energy tank to bust through the fight, because then you got to deal with them in the end, and it's going to be tough when there's like, you know, 8 of them. And you have to fight all the bosses. That can be a tricky little boss rush. So you're going to have to learn how to fight the enemies anyway. Now, of course, you could save the if you have the energy tank saved up, then, you know, you can pull a lot of bullshit. If you have like 6 energy tanks when you get to the boss rush, you could even be sloppy about it, probably to some extent. But I mean, I wouldn't really recommend doing that. I mean, it's better to have more energy tanks, if anything, on Bison, because M Bison can be tough. Now, I'm not showing the secret bosses. If you get perfects on the bosses, I think if you get 4 perfects on the final boss rush, you'll get an extra fight with Akuma, I believe. But I didn't do any of that. Now, if you do want to get a perfect, there is a trick to get a perfect on a boss. You can just fill your energy tank right before you use an energy tank before you kill a boss, and then you'll have full health after beating the boss. And then that'll count as a perfect. And if you do that 4 times, you will, I think, unlock Akuma. But that's optional. You still get an ending. It doesn't even give you a bad ending or anything for beating just M Bison and not even doing the secret boss. I don't know if there's a better ending, that I can't say, but the ending just shows you walking away, basically, with Ryu for some reason. After you just fucking killed his ass, now you're peacefully walking with him for some reason. So yeah, for this boss, you're just going to use the satellite power and just, you know, equip that, and you can also fire out these balls with it. So use the shield that goes around you to damage him as he comes next to you, but also fire out the little balls. And that's it. Just try to keep your distance from him. Otherwise, you'll take a lot of damage by him jumping into you and throwing projectiles. Just keep your distance. Fire out those little balls. And when you use the satellite, it immediately creates a shield around you temporarily. So when that runs out, just fire it again and get it back. So now you get the Minesweeper, which works very good against Uriel. Or Urinal, I believe it is. I believe it's Uriel that the Minesweeper works good against, but we'll see. So yeah, here I was actually taking a picture of the passwords on my tablet. I use it to for games that don't have save states like this. A lot of PC games don't have that. I will take a photo. So that's why I was sitting there for a while. I was mostly editing those down for the tutorial, but it looks like I didn't edit that one down enough. It was a little long, but as long as I got this video under an hour, I was good because it means I can record one commentary. If it goes over an hour, I have to break it up into multiple edits and then combine it. It takes a little bit longer. It's a little bit of a pain in the ass. So I tried to keep this under an hour. So I edited out a decent amount of deaths for the tutorial, mostly boss deaths. But this is just a demonstrative video, so this is just showing how to do all the sections, how I did them. That's all it really is. But I do have another video up, a playthrough that's a little bit longer. It has regular deaths left in that don't waste a whole continue, but it leaves the boss deaths in. But yeah, for these platforms, you just have to know how to do them. You have to slide at the right time on the first one, the first falling platform in that area. You have to basically slide at the right time, and then you have to keep yourself centered on the second falling platform by sliding left and right to stay centered. You'll see if you watch my video exactly what I did on that part. It's pretty self-explanatory if you watch the video. I should have explained it better, but I was rambling about something else. So now with this, you can just easily skip these guys. You don't even have to kill them. Just, wait till they give you an opening. A lot of this shit is really simple, but this is probably one of the hardest. This is the hardest of the boss stages, probably. This and Dhalsim. There is a harder stage. Vega's stage, I would say, is the hardest, probably. And that's one of the 4 boss stages. After you beat the 8 main bosses, then you have the 4 special bosses. In Street Fighter, Vega, Bison. Actually, no, Sagata's not in this for some reason. I don't know why, but Bison, Vega, and Balrog, pretty much. So 3 boss stages. I think you fight 3 boss stages in this game. 3 special bosses. Yeah, so now you're going to be fighting Uriel soon. Now these things, you're supposed to shoot them when the shield is not facing you. It's supposed to be wait for the ball to be exposed when you shoot. Otherwise, the bullets reflect back at you. But it's not a big deal, though. It doesn't really. I mean, I don't wait for the shield. I just keep shooting. You have enough health in these levels. Like I said, these stages are very, very easy for a Mega Man game. You can play pretty loosely. You don't have to be too refined, aside from a few of the boss fights. But so now at this stage, it looks like I'm using for some reason the regular Buster. So now it could have been I wasn't having much success using the Minesweeper. I think I may have found it a pain in the ass to use. But I believe the correct weapon to use on this guy is the Minesweeper. But I kind of just I was getting irritated with the Minesweeper. I think I don't because it's tricky to use because it has an arc to it. But I believe that is the weapon that does the most damage to him. So if you want to use a correct weapon, use the Minesweeper and keep your distance. And you're going to see me fighting him both ways with the Buster, like I did here, and you'll see me fight him with the Minesweeper on the final boss rush. So you'll get both of those in the video if you want to see an alternative method that I used, which is supposed to be the correct method. The correct method is to use the Minesweeper, I guess. But I just went with the Buster shot. I was having more success. I was getting kind of fed up with the mines going over his head because they have this weird arc. I find it kind of irritating to use. So now you get the Reflector, and now you'll be able to take on Ryu very, very easily by reflecting his fireballs back at him. So it makes that fight very, very easy. And of course, now that Ryu is your last one, save this password right here. You should be saving them anyway, but keep a note of this password because you're gonna want to make sure that you. Well, actually, if you do this ahead of time, you won't even need to refer back to this password. I had to because I wasn't thinking about conserving energy tanks, really. I wasn't really understanding what to do with them exactly. But, so what you want to do here is get the energy tank on this stage. And, at the very least, if you used all the other energy tanks, that's fine. But at the very least, if you want to do it the way I did it, at least save the energy tank from this stage and don't use it on Ryu. Ryu is a super easy boss. The stage is super easy. Just use Reflect. All you got to do is place a Reflect shield, and it will reflect the beam back at the enemy and kill it instantly. That's all you got to do for these things. Some of them you can just bypass, obviously, but yeah, see, that gets them both, so that's a very well-positioned shield. So yeah, soon you're gonna just, all you're gonna do is just get the energy tank. Like, don't use it on the boss, that's all. And then you'll be able to get 2 more on the final boss rush. So you'll have 3 energy tanks for the 8 boss robots and M Bison. So you're gonna have, you're gonna be much better prepared. 3 energy tanks still means you have to do quite well on those last parts. That's why I say if you didn't want to have to practice as much, you should have saved all the energy tanks, like I was saying, and then you would have, I believe, 6 energy tanks for the final areas. And then you could play pretty sloppy. If you had 6 fucking energy tanks, you could fuck around a lot with that. But if you didn't play that conservatively, like I said, at least make sure that you do this stage and get the energy tank and don't use it on this stage. It'll give you a definite advantage, because I ended up going back because 2 energy tanks wasn't really great for the final, for the final stretch. I mean, I almost beat M Bison with no energy tanks, but it's very hard. I mean, I would have had to practice it more. And I just found it easier to go back and get, go back to Ryu's stage and redo it. It's a very easy stage, and just get the energy tank and keep it. For whatever reason, I think I just wasted it just to beat Ryu or some shit. But I went back and did it proper. So yeah, I recommend at least having those 3 energy tanks at the very least. There's really no reason not to. And of course, if you farmed energy tanks with that trick that I mentioned in the beginning, then you don't have to worry about that shit at all. You probably have like 99 fucking energy tanks. But if you do that, if you get like 10 energy tanks to start the game with, you'll make the game a joke. So you can definitely do that if you want. So you may want to get these little healths over here by reflecting this beam, because you're probably going to use it anyway. Unless you just leave, you could just walk out to the left and just ignore them. But it's useful to get some of that health if you need it. I like to get up close to these guys with no skill involved, as you see, and just machine gun into their body. As soon as they're vulnerable, they get killed. I just point blank those guys. I even do it with these reflector guys too, because I ran out of reflection shots. Here I just skipped them though. But see, I messed up this jump a few times. It's not that hard, but you do have to. This game has weird edge controls where it's like all janky at the edge. I don't know why. And I know it's not my controller because I played through, hundreds of fucking games with this controller. Well, this is a newer one. I had to replace the one I broke. It's an M30. Great controller. It's 8-bit do M30. It's a Sega Saturn, Sega Genesis style 6-button controller. And it has turbo functions. Great D-pad. Highly recommend that. The last one lasted me about 2 years. I probably beat about 600 games on it, though. So it was... they last a pretty... for $30, it's a good fucking controller. It lasts way longer than those fucking Elite controllers by Microsoft. I've been chewing through those things. So yeah, make sure you get that energy tank by jumping over the gap and getting the energy tank, as you saw me do if you were paying attention. I wasn't paying attention, but I remember that there was an energy tank up there. So... yeah, so now... you just use your reflection shield that you've been using on the other guys. Now, if you do die, I believe you get your reflection shield all refilled anyway. So you may have to die or something, but you should have lives left over. It's a very easy fucking stage. So all you got to do here, place the reflections down and just go to the opposite side, pretty much. All the way to the opposite side, place the reflectors down, and rinse and repeat. And just place them as you're going to the other side. Place a few here and there, just so space them out a little bit so that. He ends up getting fucked up by him. It even reflects his kick, too, so it's useful. And it also reflects that massive fireball that he shoots out, which does pretty good damage to him, I think. So, if it hits. Didn't hit that time. If you run out of reflectors, though, you can get overzealous with them like I did. If you run out of them, then you may have to finish them off with Buster. And you may even want to place down a satellite shield to give yourself a little extra protection and then go, switch back to your Buster. I had a much easier time with him, I believe, on the final boss rush for whatever reason. Now, it is possible that the final boss rush, that the bosses have a little bit less health for that, though I'm not sure. I couldn't remember if it did. I mean, like when I was playing, I couldn't tell for sure if they did or not. But you will be fighting all 8 bosses again, as is the tradition with these games. So, That's why I said, try to at least have that energy tank. At least try to have 3 energy tanks. The very fucking least. You should really have 6, though. There's really no reason to use them on the 8 bosses. I did waste them, but looking back, I really, if I would have understood how the energy tanks worked, I would have just held on to them, because then I wouldn't have had to redo all that shit. I would have beaten the game, at least 30, 40 minutes faster, maybe an hour faster if I would have done that. Easily. So now this is the last password you're gonna get in the entire game. The next 3 stages are the final 3 stages of the game against the special bosses. So first is Balrog. Now all you got to do with Balrog is just dash right. Keep mashing dash and dash to the right, and he will kill himself. So just do that. And also keep put your satellite weapon on and just keep refreshing it when the shields wear out. Just start it up again, and just keep sliding. As long as you rapidly slide and keep that on, you're going to kill enemies and grab power-ups as you're sliding. So, and he's never going to be able to reach you. He's going to fall in a hole and die. So that's all you got to do. Super easy stage. Actually, a cool idea for a stage, but in this execution, it's way too easy because there's like no pits or anything to worry about. You just, as long as you have your shields up, you probably don't even need to use the satellite shield. You might survive just by sliding. Though I wouldn't really recommend doing that, because there's a lot of enemies near the end. There's no reason to conserve that weapon anyway. So yeah, remember though, at the end of this stage, there's another energy tank, and the only way you're going to get it is by sliding right really fast and grabbing it. So keep mashing that slide at the end. And you see, I just picked up an energy tank. You probably didn't even see it on the screen. But I got an energy tank. So make sure you get that energy tank at the very end. Now, another way to do it, apparently, is you can jump over that bridge that falls, and then Balrog will stand on the bridge, and it'll fall, and that'll give you enough time, I think, to go over there and get the energy tank. But I never did it that way. I just keep sliding. I always get the energy tank when I do it that way. Now, for this first part, go up the first screen straight up immediately, then shoot the orbiting guys. For this part, just time it. You can line up with those candles, those torches. If you line up just right, you won't get hit. So you just got to get the spacing right, and you can do it every time. With these guys, very easy. Just wait and then shoot to your left to take them out. Just get enough space to get in that gap and just shoot to the left. This is one of the hardest stages, so it may take a few tries. It's not too hard if you do it the way I show, though. All right, so use the flame here and take out these guys. It's just easier if you kill these guys. Now this next part is very easy. Just wait at the bottom, and you're going to take out these satellites again. So just wait for them. And when they get in position, you can just take them out. Now use a reflector to take out that one single guy at the top. It makes it easy. Yeah, and the rest of the stage is really, really easy from this point on. So use your satellite. And you can also get some items from those guys. Try to kind of wiggle into them and get some extra, take out some extra ones so you can grab some more power-ups if possible. But it's optional. The satellite does help, though. Usually you won't even get hit on that part, but I got sloppy. It's a little hard to line up. But now just take your time and shoot these swords out. You want to time your bullets as they're charging into you when they rush you, the swords, and you'll take them out as they're trying to rush into you. Just watch out for those bombs in the last screen, but same thing. Here I got a 1-up, but usually you won't. You can farm in these areas as well. So just mash, just gun down all those enemies. You can dodge a little bit if you want. Very easy. But that first part, those first little parts where you're climbing can be tricky. It's one of the harder parts. Because if you get hit, you can get knocked down all the way down sometimes if you don't latch back on. Something to be aware of. Now, this is the hardest boss in the game aside from Bison. Bison is probably the hardest boss, but this guy can be very hard. So it may take you some tries to get this down. It usually takes me, even when I played this over again, it took me a while to take this guy out. I at least went through one set of lives. So use lightning kick and set it to rapid fire. I like to set it on rapid fire, but you don't need to. It doesn't help that much. But basically what I like to do is when he goes up, when he does that zigzag attack, he's always going to come down in the middle. So just be ready to go to the middle and hit him. But when he launches up in the air and dives down on you, when he homes into your position, which is what he does the most, that's the hardest thing to dodge. And I would get hit by that every time until I stopped trying to time my dodges, because you can try to slide out of the way at the right moment and dodge it. I stopped trying to do that. What I do is I just keep sliding to one side as he's doing that, and he usually can't catch up with me. So I recommend spamming the slide when he's getting ready to home in, and just keep sliding to the left or right. Just make sure you have enough room to spam slide to the other side of the screen when he's launching. And you know there's a good chance that he'll miss you if you're spamming slide aggressively. Now there's one final energy tank here. But if you beat Vega, then that's good because you're getting close to beating the game. But M. Bison is going to be tough if you don't have enough energy tanks. But it can be done with no energy tanks. I almost got him once, but it took a while to get him that well. So you use your Tropical Hazard as a spring. If you put down the watermelon, you can bounce off of it. And then you want to use something like Lightning Kick to take out these things that are blocking your path up there. So, I mean, usually I got it like on my first try, but this was super sloppy. So, you know, try to do better than that. But you have plenty of chances. You have enough ammo to keep trying this. You have enough health. And then you can commit suicide and waste out your lives if you want, so that you have full lives for the final area. But, yeah, just keep doing this until you're able to break through. You just want to get up there and get in there because there's an energy tank up there. And you should be able to have at least 3 energy tanks. You know, if you save that one from Ryu's stage. You should really have 6. But if you have 3, you'll be in pretty good shape. It gives you a good chance at beating the game. Just keep in mind that if you get desperate and you waste an energy tank and then you die anyway, that energy tank doesn't come back. So you got to be very careful where you use them. You know, if you're doing really badly, it's better not to waste your energy tanks. Just try to, you know, start over and try to, you know, start on a fresh set of lives and try to do better. It's really not worth cashing it in. It's not even worth wasting an energy tank if you are about to beat an area and, you know, you waste an extra energy tank when you could have played the stage a little bit better. I would say on the boss rush, only allow yourself to use 1 energy tank on the final 8 bosses on the boss rush that's coming up. So now I pretty much committed suicide and started the stage over because I got the energy tank. See, now I have 3 energy tanks. So that's my recommendation, is to at least have a minimum of 3 energy tanks at this stage. So you're only going to use, I would say only allow yourself to use 1 energy tank, because then you have to fight M. Bison with only 1 energy tank, and it's going to be much, much harder. If you have 2 energy tanks for M. Bison, you know, you don't have to master the fight. You can still beat it. And that's what I ended up doing. So that's what I'd recommend. Now, if you shoot this middle area, you can get health and weapon refills. You also get your weapons refilled anytime you lose a life. And this is a checkpoint, so if you beat any bosses, it makes a checkpoint. And you won't have to go back and beat all the bosses again. So whichever ones you beat will be saved. But once you lose all your lives, of course, you will have to start the stage over and the bosses will be all back. So you can do the bosses in any order you like. I like doing some of the harder ones first to get them out of the way. Now, of course, for this enemy, use the lightning kick, as you did when you fought her initially. It's going to be the same fight again. She can be a little tricky. I try to really spam lightning kick when she's standing in one area for a while and get in, 3 or 4 hits, and that does a lot of damage. But you want to move around a lot as well. Don't forget to shoot this little middle area. That black and white ball in the middle will give you some health back. It gives you a decent amount of health back. It's not a hell of a lot, but it helps. So here, it doesn't matter really the order that you fight the bosses, as long as you use the right weapons on them, Because otherwise, you don't really want to fight them with the Buster unless you're really good at the fucking game. But Optic Laser is the best weapon to use on Dhalsim. But if you run out, just use your Buster. He's a very easy boss on this stage because there's no obstacles in your way, and you can just, get away from him and shoot his fire. So he shouldn't even really hit you. This stage has no barriers or anything to make it challenging, so it makes the fight very easy, even which is a regular Buster shot. So you shouldn't have too much of a problem with this. If you beat him already on the other stage. So you get some health back between the fights. The order that I fought the bosses in was kind of determined by how my health was looking. What I would do is if there was, if my health was kind of low, I would fight one of the easier bosses and try to beat the boss without getting hit and then get some of my health back, between the fights. So that was my strategy that I would use to try to survive a little bit longer and stretch out my lives. So that's what I would recommend doing. Once you know where the bosses are, try to take care of the hardest ones first if you can. And if you do need some health, save the easier ones for as health refills, basically. Fight them when you need some health back. Kill them and then get the health refill, and that'll keep you alive a little bit longer. So yeah, this is very easy. I do it a little bit better this time, I think, where, I leave the watermelons in her way. I think she's allergic to them or some shit. But it was still sloppy. I usually end up fucking it up a lot on this fight. But it's still very easy if you just leave the watermelons down. I did have to end up, fighting her with the Buster. I may have fucked this one up. Maybe I did better on the next time. I know I used an energy tank on this final boss rush. But here I just let myself lose a life, because I still had like 2 lives left to finish this. So it was all right to lose a life. Now I may do it better this time without taking so much damage. I think I needed a little warm-up maybe. But maybe not. She can be tricky because she teleports around the screen. So it is kind of hard to avoid. But see, if you do it right, you can put the watermelons in her way and she'll just kind of rush into them as she's trying to get to you. I think I was starting to get it down a little bit better here towards the later half of the fight. It seemed like I was getting a little bit of a rhythm. But yeah, I never got good at this fight or anything. You can finish her off with the Buster. Now, I was using rapid fire a lot of times, but I was constantly toggling it on and off. Whenever I would use, most of the special weapons, I would toggle the rapid fire off. Because you'll waste your special weapons super fast if you have a lot of them on rapid. It can just drain them. And, bosses, as you know with the Mega Man games, if you've played these, bosses are only vulnerable. Bosses are invincible after you get a hit for, maybe a half a second or so. So you do have to wait for that, that white flash to go off their body usually before you can hit them again. So you don't want to rapid fire, certain weapons, or you won't get just waste them. They'll go through the invincible frames. So very easy again. Just use your reflectors and move across the screen. Same thing. Ryu is one of the ones I usually save if I'm low on health, or Dhalsim, because I can get some health back. But I don't think I played that really well anyway. So now Rolento, you just use the satellites again. At this point, I still have my 3 energy tanks. I haven't cashed them in yet. I wait to the very end to cash in my energy tank because I don't want to use it when maybe I could have saved it for Bison. You know what I mean? There's a potential that I could have beat it without using an energy tank. So I try to stretch it out as far as I can before I had to use it. I didn't want to bother and go back and master this stage without using any energy tanks just because... I didn't feel like I really needed... I felt like I could beat M. Bison fine with 2 energy tanks. I mean, I already had almost beaten him with no energy tanks. And I actually did beat him using 1 energy tank. I actually beat him, but I died at the same time that he exploded. So, of course, I didn't get credit for that. So I ended up having to redo, and that costed me a lot of time. But, I would say, only allow yourself 1 energy tank and try to hold on to it till the very end if you can. If you're using it early, that's dangerous because you may not then beat the boss rush without using another energy tank. And then you're, and if you fail, then your energy tanks are gone for good. You'll have to restart at the last password. So, it's not that much to redo once you know the stages, but Vega can still take a few attempts. Vega was still hard for me even when I did the stages. He would still take me some lives to beat. So, you can save yourself some time by, being conservative. This fight is easy. I was just playing it kind of shitty, but, it's the same fight again. See, I fucked up there. But luckily at this point, I still had another life left, I believe. And I had my 1 energy tank that I was going to allow myself to use on this section. So I was still in decent shape. M. Bison is by far the hardest boss. That's why I was recommending trying to save up those energy tanks. Initially, I did use an energy tank just to beat Vega, but then I rethought that. And I redid it because I was like, I really didn't need to use an energy tank on Vega when I could, play a little bit better and bring it to the final areas. So yeah, only 2 bosses left at this point. Now, a few of the harder ones I did save for later because they had the potential to drain like all my health. Like Uriel always gives me a lot of trouble, so I kind of was avoiding him until the very end. But I did do some of the harder ones first, just not the hardest one for me, which was Uriel. I was avoiding Uriel for a while. I'm actually contemplating like my next move, and deciding should I fight Uriel next, I'm kind of trying to budget myself. Thinking about if I'm going to use if and when I'm going to use the energy tank. Because I wanted to try to not use the energy tank, but I decided that I would allow myself to use 1 energy tank if I thought that I could beat it only using 1. I didn't want to use that 1 energy tank early on, though, because then I may not beat the boss rush. Then I just wasted an energy tank for no reason, So Minesweeper does work pretty decently on him, as you can see. It's probably better to bounce him off the wall and have him come to you. It seemed to be working better for me at that point. But things got very sloppy, and I actually barely beat him on this attempt, so my strategies were not too good. I didn't have this fight down too well. But yeah, once he was defeated, I believe I left Blanka as the last guy. And Blanka's really not too hard with the Inferno, but he can be a little tricky. He jumps around a lot. The Yoga Flame will fix you into place when you're in the air, and it can get you stuck and you'll get hit, so it can be kind of irritating if you're jumping with it. I used my energy tank here because I knew I was going to lose, I was going to die. So whenever he does that move where he pounds the ground and fire goes on the ground, you just have to jump after the animation. After he beats his chest, just jump. And make sure when you're jumping, adjust your jump floating a little bit left to right so that you don't get hit by the watermelons that fall down. You just got to adjust your jumping a little bit midair. And that's about it. It's very easy to dodge. And aside from that, just keep flaming him as much as possible. Now this is the hardest part of the game and the final boss. Hopefully you took my advice and saved 2 energy tanks for this fight. You want to have at least 2. As I said, you really, if you were taking my advice, should have, like 5 energy tanks for this part. But 2 is fine. So you're going to start off. I use Optic Laser to start off with. And you're just going to have to kind of learn his moves, which takes some time to try to read his moves. It's obviously not the easiest thing to explain, but I try to stay on the opposite side of him most of the time and shoot him from a distance is the main thing I do. Now, after the Optic Laser is wasted, it wastes pretty fast. I switch over to Hadoken. Luckily, this Hadoken, it lasts a long fucking time. So one thing I do is that whenever he disappears, I know he's going to reappear on either the left or right side, but I don't know which side it's going to be. So what I do is I fire 1 shot to the right, 1 shot to the left, and it increases my chances of getting in a random hit. So, and whenever he rushes to one side, he's going to come back and do that torpedo move. Just be ready to jump, and you should be able to dodge it. Now, sometimes it goes a little high, and you may have to slide under it. Those ones usually get me when he does it a little high, but most of the time you'll be able to jump over it. Whenever he's across from the screen from you, you can usually get some fireballs on him before he makes it back to you, but he does teleport a lot. So here I'm using my next energy tank, which is kind of a pain in the ass to get to in the menu. For some reason, it's hard to scroll to it. I still have some Hadokens left, so I'm using them up on him. But soon I'm going to have to finish him off with the Buster Shot. Luckily, I still have another energy tank left, and my health is still good. So yeah, now I go back to just Buster Shots, and I'm using Rapid Fire, which can get decent amount of hits in. But you see, I really didn't have this fight, down or polished or anything like that. I just made sure I brought enough energy tanks, and I had a general idea of how I was going to fight him with, not taking a massive amount of damage. And I think I ended up using my last energy tank, too, if I remember right. But yeah, the M. Bison fight can be tricky. It can definitely take a while. You want to try to just stay away from him, but he teleports right on your ass. You want to keep sliding and keep moving. And like I said, keep taking those Hadoken shots to the left and to the right whenever he teleports out of the area, because there's a good chance that, one of those Hadoken shots will get a hit on him. Because you really don't know what side he's going to appear on. So I found that shooting both left and right actually kind of helped with that. So yeah, hopefully you have enough energy tanks. If you do, it shouldn't be too bad. If you have any questions, let me know, and thanks for watching.